You may be seated. Your Excellency President Ramaphosa, Your Excellency President Buhari, ministers and delegates, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the signing ceremony of the agreed minutes of the 9th session of the Bilateral Commission between the Republic of South Africa and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I now have the honor to invite the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa, Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Minister Geoffrey Onyama. Ministers. Congratulations and thank you very much, ministers. We have now come to the end of the signing ceremony. I would now hand over to the Program Director for the press briefing, Ms. Diko. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me thank you for making the time to attend this particular press briefing. This briefing comes at the conclusion of the state visit and the binational commission. Sorry, at the conclusion of the state visit and the binational commission, yes, I'm correct, between President Ramaphosa and His Excellency President Buhari. I would like to invite His Excellency President Ramaphosa to deliver his remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Diko. Your Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, honorable ministers from our two respective countries, high commissioners, members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by extending once more a very warm welcome to you, my brother, President Buhari, and your delegation for this most historic state visit to South Africa. I should say that in our administration, which just started after our elections, your visit is most historic because it is the first state visit since our new administration started its work in May. So we honor you for coming to our country to be the very first head of state to visit us in South Africa. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This visit has offered us a great opportunity to renew what I would call the strong bonds that exist between our two nations. President Buhari and I have just inaugurated the elevated session of the Binational Commission between South Africa and Nigeria. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the BNC between our two countries, this is the first session to be held at heads of state level. This session has provided us a platform to re-engage, to re-energize as well, and to further deepen our political, our trade, commercial, and investment relations, but also our people-to-people relations between South Africans and Nigerians. The progress that we made today is encouraging and in many ways lays a firm and strong basis for future relations between our two countries. In the course of our discussions and through various high-level engagements, we have had an opportunity to reflect on the number of issues, but more especially on the public violence that took place in South Africa a few weeks ago. As the government of South Africa, we have expressed our deep regret at the events of the past few weeks that manifested themselves through attacks that were directed at foreign nationals, and our condemnation of all forms of intolerance and acts of violence remains very, very firm. We are committed to addressing the genuine concerns of our people on issues such as poverty, unemployment, crime, drugs, and migration. We are equally committed to upholding the rule of law and ensuring that all those involved in criminal activities, regardless of their nationality, are prosecuted. And during the course of this period, a number of people were arrested and they will be prosecuted. We welcome the willingness of the government of Nigeria to work with us to address these challenges. During our talks, we reviewed a range of issues of bilateral and continental and global interest to both countries. We have noted with great satisfaction the growing bilateral cooperation as demonstrated by the existence of 32 bilateral agreements and memoranda of understanding. These agreements cover a wide range of fields, including trade and industry, science and technology, defense, agriculture, energy, transport, arts, and culture and tourism. We have directed our ministers and officials to ensure full implementation of all signed legal instruments for the mutual benefit of our respective countries and peoples. For the outstanding agreements, we have directed ministers to finalize negotiations in the shortest period of time. Our economic ties between our two nations continue to grow. Nigeria accounts for 64% of South Africa's total trade with the West African region of our continent and is one of our largest trading partners on the continent itself. We noted with appreciation the increasing presence of South African companies in Nigeria and agreed on the need to promote greater investment by Nigerian companies in South Africa. But we also noted that there are quite a number of small and medium enterprises that are owned, run, and controlled by Nigerian nationals that operate in our market as well. As part of our efforts to increase economic cooperation, a Nigeria-South Africa Business Forum is meeting as we speak, and this is comprised of business delegations from both countries. We will urge our business people to take advantage of the great opportunities in our respective countries for trade and collaboration. Our governments have committed themselves to creating an enabling environment in both countries for doing business in our respective countries. We have identified key sectors for investment to boost economic growth and development. These sectors include roads, rail infrastructure, mining, manufacturing, and agro-processing. We also discussed regional, continental, and international peace and security challenges, We have noted with concern the continued instability and conflict in some parts of our continent. We have reaffirmed our commitment to work together in pursuit of peace and stability and development on the African continent. We have saluted the great strides being made by African Union member states to advance continental integration. The agreement on the Africa Free Trade Area is a practical example of this progress. Once it is fully implemented, this agreement will facilitate a huge increase in intra-African trade and investment. On the international front, we have affirmed our common view on the need to promote multilateralism, South-South cooperation, and the broad interests of the developing world. We have reiterated our call for the reform of the global system of governance, and in particular, the United Nations Security Council, to be more equitable, more representative of all regions of the world. We have committed ourselves to working together to enhance close political, economic, and social, as well as people-to-people relations between our two countries. Your Excellency, let me thank you and your delegation once again for visiting us. I hope that you have enjoyed so far your stay here, and you will continue to do so until we bid you farewell. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency President Ramaphosa. May I invite you, Your Excellency President Buhari, to deliver your remarks.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, honorable ministers, senior officials, members of the press. At the invitation of my brother, President Cyril Ramaphosa, I arrived South Africa yesterday for a state visit and the inaugural meeting of our bi-national commission at heads of state level. My delegation and I have been warmly received by the government and people of South Africa. During the course of the working session, we reviewed a wide range of bilateral, regional, continental, and global issues of common interest and concern to our two countries and peoples. We understand the long historical ties of friendship and solidarity between our two peoples, which have since been upgraded to a official and strategic partnership manifest in the large number of agreements between our two countries. We agreed on the need for us to strengthen even further our cooperation in areas such as peace building, good governance, and sustainable development in Africa in order to deliver the Africa we want. We noted with satisfaction that 32 signed agreements and memorandums of understanding between the Republic of South Africa and the Federal Republic of Nigeria cover such areas as trade, investment, energy, mining, defense, and security issues, police affairs, immigration, tourism, and environmental, among others. We stress the need to implement agreements in force, ratify signed agreements not in force, and renew expired agreements. Against this background, our two countries have also agreed to unequivocally address the challenges in our relations, including recent people-to-people challenges that saw attacks against foreign nationals, including Nigerians, and their properties, which we strongly condemned. We have decided to work and take concrete measures together to prevent the reoccurrence of such unacceptable incidents in the future. We have also committed to reinforcing our leadership role for peace, security, and development in Africa. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. I will take two questions, one from Nigerian media, one from South African media. Could I start with Nigerian media? If you could introduce yourself, please, sir.
Okay. My name is Adam Musamba, I report for Nigerian Television Authority. Mine is to President Ramaphosa. From what we are seeing, Nigeria and South Africa are now willing more than ever to forge stronger partnerships for enhanced socio-economic well-being of both countries. However, this can only be achieved if lasting solutions are found to the recurring acts of hostility in this country. Have we seen the last of such acts of hostilities in your country? Secondly, sir, in the light of recent happenings, what specific measures will your government take towards encouraging and ensuring that Nigerian businesses and investments thrive in this country as happens in our country? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll take the second. Let me take the second question, and then we'll come back to the Excellencies for a response. SABC.
Sophie Mkwena from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. My question is directed to President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. President, you indicated that the issue of violence that was directed, or where we saw some foreign nationals being victims, should be addressed. But there's also a concern from South African citizens in terms of when you look at the resources we have as a country, that our country is battling just to address the needs of its own people. The other issue has been the issue of crime. South Africans saying at times, not all the time, there are pockets of individuals who come into our country and they commit crime. How can the two leaders work together to ensure that the very same concerns of South Africans are addressed? And my second question is directed to President Ramaphosa. Mr. President, South Africa and Nigeria hold very important positions on the global stage. Currently, the president of the United Nations is from our fellow African country, Nigeria. On the Security Council, South Africa is currently holding the presidency of the Security Council, which speaks to how important these countries are and are supposed to take a lead. The issue of the reform of the Security Council, what is Africa doing, or the two countries doing, to ensure that Africa is represented in the Security Council, not as a rotating member, but as a permanent member of the Security Council? Since World War II, it's not business as usual. The dynamics have changed. But Africa must always rotate. But when you look at the challenges right now, the superpowers are found wanting.
Thank you very much. May I please invite you first, President Ramaphosa?
Thank you very much, Ms. Diko. Clearly, the events of the past few weeks in our country, as I said, are regrettable. And we would like to see an end to those types of events that happened here when foreign nationals, including Nigerians, were subjected to violent attacks, is something that we've always said we cannot tolerate, we cannot allow, and we would like to see that being brought to an end. And at the same time, the reprisal attacks that also took place in Nigeria against South African businesses, something that we both agreed should not happen any further. Now, what steps are we going to be taking? An occasion like this that demonstrates to all and sundry, particularly South African nationals as well as Nigerian nationals, is a clear indication of our commitment as two governments and as two peoples to work together in cooperation to ensure that we enhance the cohesion that exists between our two nations and that we are promoting all the best of values, because what has happened does not represent the values of the peoples of Nigeria and the values of the peoples of South Africa. And as leaders, both President Buhari and I, and as two governments, we are totally against the acts that happened, and we condemn them in the strongest of terms, and we will not tolerate them. And to make sure that we take steps moving forward, that we bring an end to these, we've agreed that we are going to set up mechanisms between our two countries. Early warning mechanisms will be set up so that once we see that there's restiveness in both our people's sort of side, we will be able to inform one another, to find ways and active ways of ensuring that we do not have recurrences. And at the same time, we will cooperate at a number of levels, including at the policing level, including at the intelligence sharing information level. So those are some of the various measures we will take place. But at the same time, we will want to encourage people-to-people contacts that are of a positive nature so that we are able to relate to one another. And in this regard, we've been really grateful in that the diaspora forums that we have here in South Africa representing people from Nigeria have been cooperating with us, have been meeting with us, and we've jointly been discussing how we can ensure that these types of acts do not recur. So our firm commitment then is that we want to make sure that we do everything we can to stop the recurrence of these, and the various actions that we are now going to take will enable us to bring all these acts of violence and acts of even dislike for one another to an end and bring them down completely. On the issue of what are we going to do to incentivize businesses in Nigeria to come to operate in South Africa, we are pleased that the commercial, the trade, the economic relations, including investment relations between the two countries are very, very strong. So that gives us a very, very strong foundation on which to enhance closer ties at the economic and trade level between our two countries. And we are in the process of further deepening our reforms so that we can make it a lot easier for our economies to be open to businesses. We want to welcome more and more Nigerian businesses to operate in our space. We want, South Africa has a number of large corporations that operate in the Nigerian market. In the South African market, many of them are small and medium enterprises. We want to address this imbalance so that we have more and more slightly larger Nigerian companies coming to operate here. And the various incentives that we have as a government will obviously also be available to them. We will make the ease of doing business in South Africa much more easier as we move on. So South Africa then is open for businesses that can be set up here, be they from Nigeria and indeed from a number of other countries. Our two economies are two big economies on the African continent, and we want those two economies to grow by leaps and bounds so that they can create jobs for our people, so that we can address the issue of inequality and poverty in a much more exponential way. So we are open to that. Should I answer the one on reform of the UN?
Yes, please.
With regard to the reform of the UN, we are fortunate as South Africa that our views, our thoughts, and our intentions are similar to those of Nigeria. We both agree that the UN Security Council architecture, the governance, should be changed. It is not acceptable that the United Nations Security Council is just a club for a few countries and is not representative. So we want representativity. We want Africa to be represented. We want equity. There should be equitable representation on the UN Security Council. We are very clear and we are firm on that. In fact, Africa's position is very clear on that. And clearly, we are continuing with our insistence that the UN governance system needs to be changed, and we continue going around the world talking to others so that there should be unanimity of views and approach on this matter. So we agree that currently the architecture of the UN is not acceptable. It needs to be more representative, and Africa itself must be well represented on the UN Security Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Ramaphosa. Your Excellency, the question is around what citizens and leaders will do to deal with the incidences such as the xenophobic attacks we've seen. But could I also request that Your Excellency also makes an input on the issues of global governance and UN reform?
Thank you very much. The question of violence, we have discussed it at a great length with the President on one-to-one basis. For those Nigerians that are here or elsewhere, as you can recall what happened in Ghana of recent, is a question of competition at very low levels, where there are barbers or they have small shops, whether they feel it should belong exclusively to the indigenous people of that locality, or it is open to all people from all over the world. I think Nigerians know the stand of the leadership, that when you are in Rome, you do what the Romans do. When you are in a country, you study the people and the laws, and you get yourself in line with what the authorities and the people accept there. If you do anything outside the people's understanding and agreement, they will not, eventually, they will not accept it. This is a very well-known thing, and we discussed this, as I said, in depth with the President, and I told him examples of Ghana, from trading in cola nuts to slave trade to now modern trade, industries, and so on. And the competition with the growth of population in all countries, especially developing countries, are going to be more keen. So it means that our respective police forces and security agencies must be very alert. They must infiltrate the communities, know their thinking, and make sure they don't allow violence to escalate.
I'd like to add maybe on what President Buhari said in our discussions on a one-to-one basis. We both agreed that it's important that people who go and seek to settle in other countries, should be they South Africans in Nigeria, Nigerians in South Africa, they must live by the laws of the country they are in. And similarly with businesses, those who run businesses must abide by the laws of the country that they are running businesses in. So on this, we are unanimous, we are clear between ourselves that the rule of law must be observed by everyone who seeks to operate, to live in any of the two countries. So Nigerians in South Africa must obey the law, South Africans in Nigeria must obey the law and must also live by the tenets of the law of Nigeria, as the others should live by the tenets of the law in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ministers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Mary Lucy, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We've come to the end of our press briefing. I want to thank you once again for taking the time to share this with us. We'll also be issuing a joint communique on the outcomes of the Binational Commission, which will be sent to all media. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And bye-bye.
He gets to say.